Hey, what's up everyone? By now I'm assuming you've had a chance to play the new operation in Marvel's Avengers, Future Imperfect, centered around Clint Barton Hawkeye. In this video we'll be discussing its ending and what it means for the future of the game, but we'll also break down the 2021 roadmap that was revealed alongside it. If you haven't beaten Hawkeye's story yet, this video will spoil all of it, so you can either come back to this later or skip to this time if you're just here for the roadmap breakdown portion. But with that said, let's revisit the ending. So basically, our last cutscene involves us taking out Maestro Hulk, who informs us that Nick Fury is beyond the storm. Both versions of Clint journey into the storm and find a dome where time has been frozen around the Kree invasion. Within the dome, we can of course see a swarm of Kree sentries, as well as a bunch of Kree warships. More importantly, we see Maria Hill, Nick Fury, and Monica Rappaccini. Monica is holding the Cosmic Cube, which is what generated the power to freeze time. So even though this is a fairly straightforward cutscene, it raises a lot of questions. To start, why did Monica freeze herself and others in time instead of just using the cube to end the fight altogether? Also, is this a future version of Fury or the present-day Fury from our timeline? And the same goes for Maria Hill. We saw an older version of Monica from Kate's DLC, so why does Monica look young here? And lastly, what does the Cosmic Cube even do and how does it work? So let's begin with that last question. The Cosmic Cube has been around in the comics for quite a while, but from what I understand, its powers aren't necessarily clearly defined. But a basic description of the Cosmic Cube is that it's a wish-granting device, where the user can use it to warp reality. From my research on the Cosmic Cube, I've also seen it mentioned that the cube has a level of sentience, and can choose how it will be used, and potentially even deny wishes. With that said, let's go back to the original question I had regarding why Monica chose to win the fight by freezing time. I don't have a clear-cut answer on this yet, but I do have a couple ideas. The first theory relates to that last part about the cube, where it can choose how to grant wishes. So in this case, maybe it didn't fulfill the wish the way Monica expected. For example, if Monica wished to stop the war, the cube could have taken it literally and just stopped it in time. So basically this dome of frozen time might have been an unexpected effect from the cube. Another theory close to this is that Monica knew the cube would only freeze the fight in place, so she planned accordingly, potentially sending in a clone of herself to use the cube while also trapping Nick Fury and Maria Hill with it. The plan was no doubt that Fury and Hill would cover Monica while she used the cube, but whether they knew of the time freeze effect is still a mystery. But anyway, a lot of question marks still surrounding the cube and why the fight was frozen, but we'll revisit these thoughts a little later when we discuss her villain sector on the roadmap. But now let's turn our attention to the timeline and why we have young versions of Monica, Fury, and Hill. As far as whether this is future Fury or present-day Fury, my understanding is that we are seeing present-day Fury here, since he traveled to the future to help future Monica the same way Clint did before returning back. I don't believe we know what's up with future Fury, whether he's dead or alive, but our focus is on present-day Fury in the game. Hill being here was a surprise to me though, since she's been helping us on our search for Fury and I don't recall her ever jumping into the future to help him. In fact, we can still see her in Substation Zero. But I think I have an idea of why that might be. So all this time travel is making things pretty confusing, but I'm thinking that the reason we're seeing the young versions of these characters here are because we're seeing 3 different timelines in the story. Present day, of course, where the main game takes place. Then there's the Future Imperfect Wasteland timeline decades later where the world has been lost, Earth is in shambles, and Fury is still missing. Then there's the timeline within the dome, which I think is between the two. The way I think this might have worked out is that old Monica reached out to present-day Monica to inform her of the Kree invasion and how it wiped out everyone. Together they helped present-day Monica create their Project Omega weapon, the Cosmic Cube. With the Cosmic Cube in hand, Monica time-traveled again with Fury a couple years beyond present day to the Kree invasion, where Monica used the cube and Hill was probably there to assist. So inside the dome is the near future. This would also explain why Hill is there too, even though she hasn't been traveling with Nick Fury. They could have met up and decided to cover Monica while she uses the cube. As far as why the world is still destroyed and the Avengers are dead, my guess is that the time travel wasn't precise. We saw this happen to Kate in her DLC, where they planned to have ample time before breaking Clint out, but overshot the time frame and ended up having like 30 minutes to catch his transport vehicle.
Jarvis, did we time travel or just, teleport?
My internal clock differs from the local time, so yes, we have succeeded. But we're only an hour ahead of our past self.
What?
Instead of transporting you a day before Clint's arrival, you have arrived an hour before.
No, I get it, Jarvis. We have to move.
Maybe something similar happened to Monica and Fury too, where they arrived after the invasion started and the Avengers died, since we can see the destroyed helicarrier in Future Imperfect 2. So Monica may have been only able to stop the brunt of the attack, while being late enough that a lot of damage was already done, still resulting in the Wasteland. I may not have all the details correct here, but regardless, in the most basic form of the story now, we see that Monica's plan failed and that the cube has trapped present-day Fury in this dome. Our goal is now to try and get him out. We learn in the story that in Old Man Hawkeye's timeline, he retired from the Avengers and wasn't with them during the invasion. He regrets this deeply and adamantly tells present-day Clint to stay with the Avengers because they'll need him. I take this to mean that Clint will serve an important purpose during the invasion, or he'll make a big impact on how prepared they are. My guess is this also means gathering a larger group of Avengers together, where the Kree invasion story will culminate in the Captain Marvel DLC. But as far as Hawkeye's DLC, this ending feels pretty abrupt since present-day Clint says he'll make sure he fixes things as we return back to present day. Regarding their plan going forward, the Avengers can prepare for the Kree now, but the issue is that our timeline no longer has Nick Fury in it because he traveled into the future and got trapped in this dome, which means we'll have to find a way to free him from it and bring him back to present day first. This brings me to the Cosmic Cube villain sector on the roadmap. We'll talk about the other events on here too, but I want to skip ahead to the Cosmic Cube since it ties in with the Hawkeye story. First things first, it was described during the Crystal Dynamics livestream as having a lot of narrative within it and that it follows the ending of Future Imperfect. A lot of people, including myself, feel that the ending of Future Imperfect felt very abrupt and unsatisfying, which makes me wonder if the original intended ending of the Future Imperfect DLC was meant to be this Cosmic Cube story. The developers may have cut it from the Future Imperfect story to buy them more time to perfect this villain sector. After all, the villain sectors have proven to be an issue for the developers since we still haven't received the Super Adaptoid villain sector. Also during the stream, it was revealed that something takes place after the Monica villain sector. My guess is that it will be another cutscene showing the end result of freeing everyone from the Cosmic Cube. If I'm correct that we get a cutscene after the Cosmic Cube mission and that it was originally intended to be the Future Imperfect ending, I imagine this ending will feel a lot more satisfying compared to the one we got in Hawkeye's DLC. My guess is that it will also give us more time with Fury and probably set up the Black Panther DLC, but this is all just my speculation. Regardless, expect a lot of narrative tied to the Cosmic Cube event. But as far as the villain sector itself, it was revealed that it will be a boss fight against Monica while she wields the Cosmic Cube. We can even see her fire a blast from it at Clint. We don't get to see much gameplay of it during the reveal, but we can at least see the setting. The fight takes place within the Cosmic Cube, which is why the location is unfamiliar. By the way, there are also these clips from the Kate Bishop deep dive that we never saw in either DLC, so I'm wondering if this is another look at the Cosmic Cube event. But presumably, our goal to free everyone from the frozen time dome is to destroy the cube from the inside where Monica is protecting it. During this fight, we'll also be taking on clone versions of Monica, so this could be a pretty unique fight compared to the rest of the villain sectors. Whether it was meant to be in Future Imperfect or not, I'm looking forward to playing it and I think it will be worth the wait until summer. But that's as much as I've been able to glean from the Future Imperfect ending so far, so let's talk about the roadmap a bit now. By the way, a lot of the details I have for it come from the Crystal Dynamics stream on Twitch, which I'd highly recommend you check out if you want all the details on the roadmap, and I'll have a link in the description below. But let's start with the Tachyon Anomaly event and Red Room Takeover. We don't have specific dates on these DLCs yet, only seasonal windows, with the Tachyon Anomaly and Red Room this spring. Red Room is in celebration of the Black Widow movie, initially planned to release in May, but as I was writing this video, the movie was announced to be delayed until July. It doesn't look like the Red Room Avengers DLC will be delayed though, since it's in celebration of the movie and not tied to it. But since the Black Widow movie was supposed to release in May, I think it's safe to say that the plan was to release Red Room Takeover in May as well. With that frame of thought, this likely means that Tachyon Anomaly is releasing in April. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if each of these roadmap events are month to month, and it was revealed during the stream that they are shown in order of release. So Tachyon Anomaly first, and Black Panther last. By the way, I'm going to do a separate video on Black Panther's trailer and DLC shortly, since I think it deserves its own spotlight, but I'll have that up soon, I promise. Anyway, back to the Tachyon event. The purpose of this event is to set up an area where we can play as duplicate heroes in a mission. This event will last for 2 weeks with daily and weekly missions tied to it. As a reward within the event, we can receive an animated nameplate, probably meaning it moves instead of just being a still picture from the comics. It also sounds like more animated nameplates are planned for the future. A new Tachyon mission will also arrive during this event, and Tachyon missions in general will show up more frequently on the war table. I should clarify that duplicate heroes can only be used during the missions of this event, and not in any other missions. After these 2 weeks are up and the event ends, there won't be any missions allowing duplicate heroes. However, it was stated that Crystal Dynamics will be analyzing the data from this event, as well as player feedback, to determine if the Tachyon event should return, and if duplicate heroes should become more of a permanent thing. I personally prefer the thematics of each player using their own Avenger with no duplicates, but I like the idea of modes that allow players to do that if they want. I know a lot of people disagree with me on that and want duplicate heroes as a permanent feature for every mission, so if you're one of those people, this will be an important event for you to get your voice heard. Moving on to the Red Room event, as I mentioned earlier, it was meant to release close to the Black Widow movie in May, but the movie has been delayed to July. However, the DLC should still drop in May. Apparently there will be a lot of lore within this DLC, and it takes place in 2 parts. In the first part, it sounds like Yelena Belova has returned from Widow's past and has placed chips in different enemies and the Avengers, so we'll be exploring what's going on in the first part. In part 2, Yelena hacks the harm room and we have to try and escape it. These harm rooms will have different layouts from what we're used to currently, and they'll all be red themed. However, it wasn't mentioned if we'll get to fight Yelena, so that remains to be seen. Beyond the Red Room mission itself, we'll also get some more animated nameplates themed around the Red Room, and this will also be the first introduction of MCU-inspired outfits showing up in the marketplace. Or at least I'm assuming they'll be in the marketplace. It was never mentioned if they'll be unlockable through gameplay or via credits. I'm just speculating. It was also reinforced that we shouldn't place much emphasis on the word inspired, since that's just a word that they're using. My guess is it has something to do with rights or some kind of legal aspect. So hopefully these outfits will be pretty accurate to the movies, but we'll see. I'd also expect for it to just be MCU outfits for Black Widow during this event, based on the new movie, but on the roadmap it is mentioned that more MCU outfits will roll out over time. Lastly, the Red Room event will change the main menu screen as well, so this Wasteland menu won't be hanging around for too much longer. We talked about the Cosmic Cube already, so next is Wasteland Patrol. We don't have a lot of details on this one yet, since it sounds like it's still pretty early in development, but we did get an idea of the general concept. As the name implies, this will introduce a patrol mode to the game. The phrase patrol mode is kind of vague in itself, since it could mean different things for different people, and different games approach it differently. But at its roots, it's essentially a large map where you and your friends can free roam around, and while you're exploring, optional missions and villains will randomly pop up. This seems to be how Crystal Dynamics are designing it too. They described it as a place where we can roam around and do what we want. It's meant to be a fun exploration space where we can go and hang out with friends, and we'll also be able to fight enemies and farm rewards. It also sounds as though it'll be a pretty big map.
Yeah, and there's I think 3 different areas to this one too, right? There's the Kree Sentry Graveyard area, the Ruined City area, and the Shield Stronghold area. So it's pretty big, which excites me.
As of now, the patrol mode will only be available in the Wasteland region, but if it seems to be a popular mode amongst players, Crystal Dynamics will add it to future regions as well. I'm personally hoping that tougher villains will randomly pop up too instead of just minions, for example Taskmaster and Maestro, since they both exist in the Future Imperfect story, but those details weren't discussed in the stream. Overall though, I think it has the potential to be my new favorite mode if done right, and it's the one I'm most excited for. I should also talk about the potential release windows for the last 3 DLC events. As it stands, they are pretty vague, just showing as summer and beyond. My personal speculation is still a month-to-month release, so maybe Cosmic Cube in June, Patrol in July, and then Black Panther in either August or September. But that's just my own guessing as of right now, nothing official has been announced beyond the seasons. But yeah, that's the gist of Patrol mode. Like I mentioned earlier, we'll discuss everything Black Panther in the next video, so stay tuned for that, but there are a few other smaller details in the roadmap as well. First up are the Omega level threats, which are meant to be a variety of endgame missions that are aimed at being extremely challenging with higher stakes. It was also revealed that there are multiple Omega level threats in the works besides just Cloning Labs, which you might remember as the one that's been teased since before launch. Cloning Labs is meant to be a longer mission that culminates in a boss fight against multiple abominations at once. Speaking of which, Phil was very straight up in that when Cloning Labs releases, there won't be a lot that's new about it besides the mode itself, since it was meant to drop around the base game's launch. So don't expect any new villains within it or different enemy types. However, they did say that we'll see an evolution of Omega level threats as they release, and they should drop pretty quickly once the first one releases. It sounds as though these missions in particular are suffering from network issues, which is why they've been delayed so long. Since Omega level threats are meant to be such challenging missions that require a lot of teamwork and are longer missions in general, it's important that the network not crash while you're in the middle of one, since that would be incredibly frustrating. This is probably the reason we don't have a lot of multiplayer content in the game as well, at least not until those issues are resolved. This goes along with multiplayer mega hives, which are in the works as well. So once the network issues are fixed, we should see an influx of new multiplayer content, specifically these Omega level threat missions, which is exciting to hear. The downside is that nobody knows when that'll be yet. Also planned for the future are enhanced gear pieces. We've heard a lot about Gear 2.0 and how the gear system is being improved. It's still in the works with the goal that gear will be much more meaningful and have a bigger impact on how you play the game. Details were vague on this one too, but it sounds to me as though there will be additional ways to level gear and improve it, as well as the potential to swap perks on gear or maybe some level of crafting. I'm speculating a bit on what exactly these new gear mechanics are, since they couldn't really talk about it in the stream, but on a base level there are new features coming to make the gear system more user-friendly and enjoyable, which is good to hear.
Another thing that we're doing is making sure that when you have a piece of gear that you like, there's ways for you to like that piece of gear for a lot longer than you do right now. So I'm sure you can think of a bunch of things. I'm not going to go into details, but the idea is that you can do that. The idea is also that if you get a piece of gear and it's not quite what you'd like, there's going to be things that you can do about that. There's a lot of mechanics that we're adding that I think are really good quality of life improvements to gear.
This also goes in line with an eventual level cap increase, presumably to help with these more challenging modes, and of course balance tuning in general. Then of course is the collectible comic system, which is aimed at improving the current comic system to incentivize you for collecting comics in the game, as well as focusing on certain comics for their specific rewards. This is definitely an exciting and unexpected change in my opinion, and I'm looking forward to see what they have in store. Because comics have been largely forgotten by most of us and aren't incredibly exciting to collect right now. However, Phil states that it's a good idea to keep collecting them right now in anticipation of this future update. Beyond this stream, I've also seen it mentioned online that we'll eventually get a Paragon system added to the game. This is basically a progression system where you can level up certain aspects of your hero after you've reached the level cap. If true, I think that's an amazing inclusion and it should help with incentivizing fans to continue playing once they've reached the max level. But that's pretty much everything for the roadmap. The crazy thing is that not everything they're working on is even listed here, and there are probably details I overlooked as well, so needless to say, there's a lot of content coming to Marvel's Avengers this year. Speaking of which, at this point you're probably wondering about Spider-Man, since a lot of us expected to see him release between Clint and Black Panther, and he's been advertised as an early 2021 PlayStation exclusive character. So basically, he's been delayed too. In a recent interview with Scott Amos, it was revealed that Black Panther will release before Spider-Man, but we don't know exactly when Spider-Man will release. Although it was kind of suggested that he won't release within the Year 1 content window for Avengers. He could still drop in 2021 though, since Year 1 technically ends in September when Avengers initially released. My personal guess is that Spider-Man is being targeted for December to coincide with the Spider-Man 3 movie hype, since it's releasing December 17th, 2021, assuming it's not delayed. If it does get delayed, I wouldn't be surprised if the Spider-Man DLC delays too, in order to release alongside the movie. But I'm just rampantly speculating at this point, since nobody knows for sure yet. But yes, Spider-Man is still coming, but that's about all we know so far. Overall, I think Avengers is heading in a phenomenal direction, and I'm excited to see that we're getting so much new content over the coming months. It's a bummer that we'll have to wait so long between characters until Black Panther, but I think the game needs more modes and quality of life changes over new characters right now anyway. There's not enough to do in the post-game to keep players engaged, so I'm glad Crystal Dynamics are working to alleviate that, and I'm especially happy to see that they are working to communicate more regularly with fans. Speaking of which, the Crystal Dynamics Twitch streams are going to occur weekly and be more information focused, so I'd recommend checking those out. But I think we'll call it here for today's video. As far as future videos, I'm planning on doing a detailed breakdown and analysis on Black Panther next, and I'll also be continuing my retrospective series with Marvel Nemesis being the next game on my list. In the meantime, I have a ton of Avengers videos in my backlog that you can check out if you haven't already, or if you're in the mood for Marvel content in general, I just finished up my retrospective series on all 3 Marvel Ultimate Alliance games, so those are available right now. But anyway, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.